Anyway, so like I said, what we do here is we read and try to explain philosophy, as I was saying earlier. It takes a ton of effort to write philosophy and then get it published. So this is in one of the top philosophy journals, the Journal of Philosophy. It's called Primary Reasons as Normative Reasons. It's from 2021 by Nathan Howard. And so, as always, let me know. I'm going to do my best to explain it, but it's my first time reading it too, and I am not endorsing any of this. We are just seeing what it is about and why did anyone put all the time and effort into writing and getting it published. Here we go. Introduction. Oh, and always at the end, we have a review system. So if you're here at the end, you get to rate the paper, and that's going to go up on a website. I have to get that done rather soon. Jesus. I have to get a bunch of things done by September, really, or mid-September, really, and I am running out of time. There are not that many days between here and then. Introduction. Donald Davidson's conception of motivating or primary reasons for actions as belief-desire pairs was and remains hugely influential in action theory. So we've got belief-desire pairs. I guess you believe something and you desire something about what you believe. But it does not enjoy comparable influence in moral theory. Primary reasons are often treated as categorically distinct from moral reasons. So primary and moral are different, and from normative reasons more generally, usually on the grounds that moral reasons, 1, can be motivating reasons, and 2 are facts. Okay. This reasoning underlies an orthodoxy according to which both motivating and normative reasons are facts, propositions, or states of affairs. I've never really read Donald Davidson, and I actually don't think I would be. So I've never read Davidson. I probably should have, but everything I read, I feel like it feels old to me now. It's all the stuff I do is it's seemingly a little different. But yeah, I don't know is the real answer, Illuminants. I don't think I am. All right. But the thesis that normative reasons for action are primary reasons enjoys better support than its critics imagine. This paper defends this thesis, proceeding as follows. I begin by showing that a popular view about what makes reasons normative implies that normative reasons are primary reasons because primary reasons draw crucial distinctions and are motives that facts generally don't. I'll then show that because primary reasons draw crucial distinctions between kinds of justification that facts generally don't, normative reasons are primary reasons. Finally, I'll describe an important but underappreciated problem for the orthodox conception of normative reasons and show that it does not arise for the completing Davidsonian conception. These 3 claims form the basis for thinking of normative reasons for action as primary reasons. Luhmann says I haven't really either, probably one of the most famous philosophers, of which I know the least. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. It's like, if I had stayed in analytic philosophy, I would have probably read a lot of them, but I didn't, and so I don't. On first glance here, I feel like I'm going to agree with this. Normative things tend to be a little bit more primary for me, a little bit more fundamental. They're not derivative. You're not like, oh, what should I eat? And then you'd be like, well, I like chicken, therefore I should eat chicken. That's the wrong way. You'd be like, oh, I feel like eating chicken, and therefore I should eat the chicken. It's not that I know I eat chicken, I have a belief about it, but the normative thing is I feel like eating chicken, then I'm going to go eat some chicken for dinner. That's a sort of, the right sort of setup. I don't logically figure out what I like and then go do it based on that. I mean, you can do that, but usually I'm just what do I feel like eating? I'm like, oh, I feel like eating this, and that's it. Okay, so, and we'll see how that is cashed out here. All right, the author says the primary reasons I discuss differ in one important respect from the ones Davidson describes, at least on one reading. According to that reading, primary reasons are pairs of tokened beliefs and desires. For example, when I intentionally drink water, my primary reason on this view is my belief that water will quench my thirst, paired with my desire to quench my thirst. All right, so I'm already pissed off right here. I was wrong about what this guy's going to do. Do I believe that water will quench my thirst? Sure, I believe that. Do I think about my water quenching thirst belief when I go and drink my glass of water. No, I don't. I just do it because I've been doing it out of habit. There is no like belief structure there. This is a habit. I may have thought that in the past, but this again is shitty phenomenology. This is like one of my problems with analytic philosophy. When they try to explain this stuff, it's like, I have a desire to quench my thirst. Really? Is that what you think about? Oh, I have a desire to quench my thirst. No, my fucking throat hurts. That's what I'm thinking. My voice is already getting scratchy. I'm not thinking, oh, I have a desire to quench my thirst. Douglas says, what is tokened in this instance? So, where is that? Where it was used here? Tokened is up here. So according to that reading, primary reasons are pairs of tokened beliefs and desires. So a token is a particular instance. So there's the idea that water will quench your thirst. You may have that. Like, I believe that now. I was believing it. Yes, I believed it yesterday. I'll believe in the future. I have to have a specific instance of that belief right now in order to be like, oh, I need water to quench my thirst, and I desire it, and I'm going to do it now. So it's the particular instance being employed right now in this case. That's how it's being used here. So we've got tokens and types. So there's the type of belief. It's like that general structure is like water will quench my thirst. That's the general type. And the belief right now that water will quench my thirst now, that's the token of it. So pairs are the beliefs against the desires. No. You have a belief and a desire. So you have the belief that water will quench your thirst and the desire to quench your thirst right now. And each of those tokens taken together, okay, I need to quench my thirst and I know that water will do so. Those are two tokens, and then I therefore reach over and drink my water because I have the belief that my thirst will be quenched with water now. They work in concert. Lumen says, whomst among us does not, before going to the fridge, check their mental inventory for propositions and then pick out an appropriate one to correspond with the available object set in said fridge? Yeah, exactly. Luminance. But like, this is the issue. Yeah, so the pairing is the belief desire, because you have to have the desire to quench your thirst and the belief that water will do it. And that's what actually gets you to, like, because you have a state you are in, the desire, and then the water is how you're going to fix it. Yep. Okay, Pirates, well, you do have an expectation that the water quenches your thirst, so that what you do to quench it, never really explicitly thought, but used. Yes. And that's exactly right, K-Pars. It's probably just trying to say drive instead of desire. This is a very popular view in cognitive science. Yes. So you can do drive or desire interchangeably as far as I'm concerned, but like, yeah. And then, now I'm pissed off. I say in the most placid tone ever. Yeah, I'm not usually ever angry on stream. I am faux disagreeing with things in a strong way that I read. That's what happens. I'm like, and they fucked up the metaphysics. But like, that's what K-Par says. Like, you can say, okay, in the background, you have a belief that like water quenches thirst. Okay. List all your fucking beliefs for me. Really? Like, is this how belief actually works? Do we have this list of beliefs about water? Yeah, sure, you know lots of stuff about water. You don't think about them. It's like the idea that like we're reasoning in this way and this is what is needed is in some sense very, very weird. You don't have this list of shit. And this is what Luminance was parodying with the quote. I forget who that's from. It's like, this is not how we actually go about our day. Yeah, we're trained on some water-based data about thirst. It's subconscious, yeah. So exactly. And that's what I said. I said it's habit. So there's something else going on. It's not like a reasoning process. We have a habitual process. And so that's a different metaphysics though. And so this is why I get annoyed, is because people are saying one thing and then they say, whoa, it's subconscious, it's a habit. That's a very different thing actually in terms of metaphysics. And so it's like, this is the thing that annoys me, is because I'm like, yeah, you're fucking up the metaphysics. And then you sort of like backtrack, not you, K-Pars, but like people in this area. I don't mean to be specific against you. I mean, people in this area be like, oh, that's what we meant. I'm like, it ain't what you said. Then why don't you say something else? Because you're going to have a different fucking theory in the end if you start off with the different metaphysics. Yeah, sorry, K-Pars. I was like, I'm not actually angry with K-Pars. I mean, K-Pars is accurately describing things in cognitive science. Lumen says, but if it's being described as a reason, it does seem like it's meant to be a conscious thought. Yeah, and that's the thing. When I reach over for the glass when I'm streaming, believe me, I'm not thinking about water. I'm thinking about just drinking, like the act of drinking. And it's like, all right, it's like drink, like the fucking, like a little fucking activity thing comes up, drink. It's like, yeah, not the structure of what's going on in my experience is not what is being said here. It's not described accurately. So yeah. But like, this is why I'd be like, oh, I'm angry. It's like, yeah. It's like, am I angry when people bust out the justified true belief? No. People have wrong ideas about the way knowledge is all the time. All sorts of stuff. It would be better if we moved on from this stuff, but like, yeah, I'm going to be grumpy about it. It's like what I said. My motivation in philosophy is like, this is not my experience. Dogan says, I'm spending a lot of my recent time learning about lower level programming, so tokens, tokenizer, lexical parsing. Yeah, I mean, if you're worried about like computer science shit, it's going to start overlapping with logic in a very fundamental way. So it's like, yeah, you're going to be talking about scopes. This is very important in logic. And you're talking about like individual tokens, like objects, like you're talking about object scopes, like what is the object or objects passed to things or the value passed. These are all fundamental things in logic too. So yeah, like a token, I don't know exactly a tokenizer lexical parsing, but like, yeah, you're getting like tokens is that individual bit of lexical stuff or whatever it is. K-Pars is being imprecise with your language and suggesting is more explicitly thought, calling it reason rather than an expectation happen. Yeah, I'm a philosopher. I get pissed about that shit. It's like, and they're running roughshod over the metaphysics. And because I'm a metaphysician, I pay attention to these sorts of things, these distinctions, because they come with different assumptions, vastly different background assumptions. When you're talking about habit, you can get away with when you're talking about these reasons and stuff and thought, you're going to get a lot of the old mind-body issues. When you're going with habits, then you can do the Heideggerian, you can do the Aristotelian, a bunch of the other things going on that, like in contemporary philosophy, that gets away from the old way of talking about mind. But that it's like, I want to get away from the old way of talking about mind. Okay. That said, now let's actually try to read the papers. Now I've been just ranting about shit. Yeah, so we've got these belief desire pairs relevant to the action. This happens when agents are not moved to do what they morally should, so normative reasons cannot be pairs of beliefs and desires. Okay. So yeah, so something's wrong if like this is not how people are acting when they act morally. If this is the theory, the background theory here. Okay. Yeah, so I don't see it as being imprecise. I see it as using shitty metaphysics. But yeah, okay. Primary reasons and good reasoning. Rather, the author instead will assume that primary reasons are the contents of those belief desire pairs. On this account, when I intentionally drink water, my primary reason is the content of the belief that water will quench my thirst, paired with the content of desire to quench the thirst, that is, the fact that water will quench my thirst, and the goal of quenching my thirst. So on the view, I assume the primary reasons eligible to be normative reasons are fact goal pairs. What gives this view continuity with Davidson's is that its primary reasons are the contents of Davidson's reasons. Okay, so we're trying to take the extension or whatever it is, the content of the beliefs and the content which is the goal of the desires. We're trying to actually just like externalize everything, where it's just like, okay, we're taking the thing that the water is thirst quenching, and we're taking the goal of quenching, so we're matching that up. Globus, what are we doing content? Yes, always. And, you're making a joke, Globus, but that's exactly what's happening here. We're saying we're not talking about what we think are beliefs and desires, but we're talking about the things out in the world. This is a very Kantian distinction that's going on right here, and this is why I already was very angry with it. I'm not Kantian. I don't like things, even if it's like mostly right, I don't like things being broken down along these lines. I get annoyed. So how you doing, Globus? I hope you're having a good day. Let's give Globus, our buddy, a shout out. Globus does AI news and analysis. and talking about all the sort of like modern day complicated tech things. And it's actually really good if you want to go over there to have some intelligent discussion about some complicated stuff. I was just ranting earlier. It was a while ago now, at the start of stream, about how I go to streams where we're having intelligent discussion. It's not all philosophy stuff, but like you go different places, and these are the streams I like where people are having like smart discussions on different topics. Is like these are the good content on Twitch. It's like, yes, if you just want to watch video games, you can also watch a VOD of someone else playing a video game. But if you want to talk about shit, this is one of the places to go do it. Hang out with Globus. Yeah. Okay, so we're dealing with contents. Yeah. All right, we'll see. So I can complain about the metaphysics as I keep going, but we'll see. Content. The sentient trees that treats all beings as ends in themselves. Yeah, the content. Ents. Yes, the ents. Very nice of the ents to do that. I don't know. Were the ents deontologists? Have to ask Shane about that. Maybe they are. Maybe they have a view like that. While this paper focuses on advantages for moral theorizing that come from thinking of normative reasons as fact-goal pairs, this conception of reasons may also circumvent a well-known challenge to Davidson's program in the philosophy of action. It is often assumed that reasons are what we deliberate about when we act intentionally. However, as several philosophers have observed, our psychological states are not normally the things about which we deliberate, they are merely the things in virtue of which we deliberate. So motivating reasons, these philosophers conclude, cannot be primary reasons if primary reasons are psychological states. Yeah, you're not worried about being angry, like the psychological state of anger. You're worried about whatever pissed you off. That's making you angry. But you're not like, oh, I'm angry about being angry. You might be. But most of the times, you're angry about something in the world that has pissed you off. And that's right. So you're not motivated by your psychological state. You're motivated by the thing that is affecting your psychological state. Okay. However, thinking of primary reasons as the contents of belief desire pairs rather than as the beliefs and desires themselves dispenses with this worry about psychologism while remaining recognizably Davidsonian. As a result, there are independent grounds for thinking of motivating reasons as the contents of belief desire pairs. However, I won't dwell on this in this discussion, turning instead to the titular claim that normative reasons should be thought of as primary reasons. And see, the funny thing is here, I don't think I agree with this philosophy, but I do think of like their overall goal as something I'm in agreement with. So this is one of these, I think they're right, but for the wrong reasons here. So it's like I support this end reason, this end goal of the paper. I just don't think I agree with the way they're getting there. People keeps referencing Davidson. I can't think he's talking about Pete Davidson from SNL. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. Like, good on Pete Davidson for being also a philosopher. Yeah, funny. Okay, 2 questions about normative reasons easy to elide. The first concerns what makes or grounds something status as a normative reason. The second concerns what. Now I've got Pete Davidson in my head. There we go. Brandon got this shit on lock. Brandon, got this shit on lock. Okay, that's good. I haven't read too much of his either. Okay, the second, what makes or grounds something status as a normative reason. The second concerns what kinds of things can enjoy that status, that is, what things are eligible to be normative reasons. To illustrate, note that the question of what makes someone an MLB player differs from the question of what MLB baseball players are. What makes someone an MLB player is signing an MLB contract. That's an answer to the first question, but applied to baseball players, not reasons. However, only people are baseball players. That's an answer to the second question. Moral philosophers tend to focus on the first question about reasons, but this paper is principally concerned with the upshots of Davidsonian answer to the second question. As a result, the call to think of primary reasons as normative reasons is a call to consider a new model for theories of normative reasons, for the model of reasons we assume shapes our downstream inquiry about which reasons are genuinely normative and about what makes them normative. Yeah, see, I really like the way this philosopher is arguing. This is all like good stuff, and I'm completely in agreement with this, but again, I don't like the Davidsonian theory, I think. I just like where they're going with it. Oh, okay. You just wanted to say it? Well, that's fine. He's a normativity guy. Good on him. Okay. This is just funny. It's like, I completely argue with the structure of the argument here. It's like, it's all good. It's just, I don't like how they're getting there. Some accounts about what makes reason normative, the first question, are neutral on the second question of what things are reasons. For example, Derek Parfit and T.M. Scanlon's position that the normativity of reasons is primitive, that nothing grounds something's status as a reason, implies no constraints on what reasons are all by itself. That's not to say that Parfit or Scanlon are silent on the second question of what reasons are. On the contrary, they appear to agree that reasons are facts. Rather, the point I wish to highlight is that the grounds for their agreement is independent of their account of what makes reasons normative. As a result, their primitivism is compatible with the thesis that normative reasons are primary reasons. Yeah, I mean, again, what makes someone like fall under a category, major league athlete of some stripe or another, and versus why they are actually that way. Like, being human and really good at the sport is not the same as, like, having signed a contract. So one's talking about the object, one's talking about the situation that gets them the classification. But, why were they able to sign a contract is different from that they have the designation once the contract is signed about them. So this is the old de dicto de re distinction. And I wasn't in Aris' stream all last night, but then I saw in the Cliff Notes, he was talking about de dicto de re, and I actually know a lot about this. Anyway, doesn't matter. By contrast, some competing accounts of what makes reasons normative do impose constraints on what things are reasons. That is, their distinctive answer to the first question constrains their answer to the second. These accounts are of particular interest here, for some such constraints makes it especially appealing to think normative reasons for actions as primary reasons. For example, Bernard Williams famously argued that there is a normative reason for you to do something only if that reason is, in some sense, be capable of motivating you to act in the way through deliberation. Some accounts hold that this deliberative role of normative reasons is the key to answering the first question about reasons, arguing broadly that a reason is normative just when and because it figures in an episode of good reasoning. In particular, some think that a reason for action is normative just when and because it is a good basis for acting that way. Call this the good basis account. Dogger says, I didn't realize that Tarski, the mathematician, was the same Tarski, the logician philosopher. Today you learned. Yep, same dude. I mean, this is the foundations of modern logic. Tarski's theories of logic and truth. So yeah, exactly.
I salute you.
951-15929. Thank you for the follow. Reason checked and found no reason to be concerned. I mean, that is kind of the thing. It's like, you did it. Why did you do it? Well, whatever the reason was you checked, Koss, like, that's a good reason. Like, if you were thinking about it, it's like, yeah. So who was Banach? From Banach Tarski? Here's somebody else. Poland mentioned, yeah. Yeah, so there we go. Now we can all argue about the foundations of contemporary logic. Funny. Yeah, the Banach Tarski theorem and stuff. I don't know enough of the history of this. I should know more. Oh well. Again, concern myself with weird shit. Okay, unlike the primitivist account, the good basis account straightforwardly constrains what kinds of things can be reasons. Clearly, only basis for action can be good basis for action, and our basis for action are our motivating reasons. Consequently, the good basis account implies that all normative reasons are motivating reasons, and as a result, if the account is true, then conclusions about the ontology of motivating reasons settles questions about the ontology of normative reasons. Yeah, because if however you reason, that's what you're using to make your decisions, which are normative in that case. Doger says, axiom of choice, paradoxical example, Banach Tarski. There are some great videos on this. Yeah. Yep, I like my axiom of choice. I have to explicitly appeal to it for the logics I like. Because the logics I use are based on Hinteka's stuff, and you need the axiom of choice to reduce it, to make it equivalent to the more standard Tarski version. You can't, the Hinteka logics I use need the axiom of choice. So it's a different sort of thing than most people are using. Okay, this connection between kinds of reasons provides the first argument for thinking that normative reasons are primary reasons. The argument begins with the observation that since primary reasons are individuated not just by the facts that they contain but also by their goals, primary reasons are strictly more finely grained than the competing corresponding facts. This fineness of grain makes primary reasons appealing, motivating reasons, because, as I'll show, claims about our motives are similarly fine-grained. For example, it seems plausible that the Cubs fan and the Cubs hater can head to Wrigley only because the Cubs are playing. Despite responding to the same fact, the two baseball fans in going to Wrigley Field differ. One goes to Wrigley to see the Cubs win, the other goes to see them lose. However, if motivating reasons are simply facts, then we're forced to concede that counterintuitively, the hater and the fan go to Wrigley for the same reason because they act on the same basis of the same fact. But that seems clearly wrong. After all, one goes to Wrigley to see the Cubs win, and the other goes to see the Cubs lose. I mean, this person is so very American to give these sorts of examples. This argument suggests that one of the things about this paper is that it was definitely not written to be read aloud. It's a little bit stilted when being read aloud. It seems fine if I was just reading it to myself, but like the language here is just it does not flow in terms of reading out loud, which is an interesting, like, it really doesn't need to be read out loud in philosophy, but like for the things I'm doing, like there isn't a problem with this paper, but like it's not meant for performance. Appropriate for our new Chicagoan Pope. Yeah, that's true. It was on the news, but some Chicagoans got out to Rome and they gave the Pope a shirt that said "Da Pope." So like da Bears, da Pope. Okay. This argument suggests that motivating reasons are more finely grained than facts, for, as in the Cubs' case, a single fact can provide two distinct motivating reasons. But we can appropriate one of Davidson's observations to support the stronger conclusion that motivating reasons are more finely grained than facts in the manner of primary reasons. Davidson writes, quote, "A primary reason consists of a belief and a pro-attitude, but it is generally odious to mention both. If you tell me you are easing the jib because you think that it will stop the main from backing, I don't need to be told that you want to stop the main from backing. And if you say you are biting your thumb at me because you want to insult me, there's no point in adding that you think that by biting your thumb at me you will insult me." Lumen says NYC has better pizza than Chicago, but I do prefer a Chicago dog. I will accept that. Chicago dogs are, as far as I know, something very special, and I appreciate your support in the truth that New York City has better pizza than Chicago. Okay. I think this is important right here. What they're talking about is going on, that like you're being redundant if you keep explaining stuff, and it's going to matter. And I'm not even sure that... Yeah, we'll see where they go with this. In the example, when you ease the jib, we can say that the reason you're easing the jib is that it will stop the main from backing, or we can say that the reason you're doing so is to stop the main from backing. On a Davidsonian picture, these two claims attribute the same motivating reason. One uses a that clause and one uses a to clause, each of which refers to one of the reason's two parts. The first refers to the part corresponding to the belief that easing the jib will stop the main from backing. The second refers to the part corresponding to the desire to stop the main from backing. Nevertheless, it's natural to run these claims together, for we can pick out the single reason by naming either of its parts. Indeed, it's often excessive to use both claims, as Davidson observes. That these different claims pick out different parts of the same reason explains why we often elide them unless we're careful. You see, this is weird. So they're saying, okay, we can describe things in two ways and people just run them together because, that's like, it's not important. What the fuck is going on here then? Really, what's going on here? They're saying everyone is wrong in what they're saying. Everyone's being conflating in what they're saying. They're not being careful. And they're saying it, well, there's something weird going on in the background. So this, and I don't blame this author for it. I feel like Davidson did this. Because it's saying, look, there's this background structure that no one's noticing, but I noticed it. And this is really what's important going on. Really? Is it really, or are we just making shit up at this point? Lumens goes as far as to say, as NYC has better pizza than anyone else. As my grandma used to say, flattery will get you nowhere, Luminance, but don't stop trying. So, yeah, this just rings, this paragraph here that I just highlighted, this really just sets off alarm bells in my head that something sneaky is going on in the philosophy. Because, again, you have to you're easing the jib to do something else. You're worried, you're trying to do something. What's your actual goal? Is your actual goal to stop the main from backing? No. No one gives a fuck about stopping the main from backing. You're trying to do something with your boat. Like you're trying to win a race. You're trying to go fishing. That's what you're doing. You're trying to get to some other thing you want to do. Stopping the main from backing or to stop the main from backing is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You want to sail your boat for some reason. That's the issue. There is a further goal. And the idea that we're cutting it short at this sort of proximal nearby thing rings of bad metaphysics again. Like they're trying to cherry pick the phenomena that they want to talk about. And this is just very worrisome to me. Doge says, I want a thing. To get a thing, I do a thing. The contents of the thingness matter? Yeah. But again, why do you want that thing, Dojo? Do you want like that specific thing in that moment? Like, do I want a sip of water? Do I want a sip of water because I am trying to read a paper, or because I feel my throat is scratchy, or because I like streaming on Twitch? Like, what is going on here? There's a lot of different reasons you could say that I want a drink of water. Is it because I had a channel point redemption? I don't know. But like, picking one and saying that's the actual reason, or giving some philosophy of language analysis here of what actually is going on, makes it look like something ad hoc is being smuggled in. And that's just like, I don't know if that's the case, but this is my alarm bells going off in this area. Okay. So yeah. And this is actually where I got it, when they were talking about the Cubs fan and the Cubs hater. Koss says, why not whiskey or Dr. Pepper or orange juice? So I used to drink on stream more, but the truth is I get less good at analysis and I'm just slower when I drink. So maybe Dr. Pepper, anything fizzy, makes me burp more, like it puts more gas in my system, and because I'm talking so much, that actually disturbs me. Orange juice would be a possibility. I basically am a cockroach. I run on sugar water. And so like something like orange juice actually would be a possibility, but like, yeah. So there's a unique cause problem. Yes, Dojo. And this is a general problem in all of philosophy where talking about causality, what is actually the like the end cause of something. This happened. This is a perennial problem. There's the problem of like many in one, like, so like there's a huge number of issues in this area. You meant in the paper? Okay. Oh, okay. I don't know in the paper. Yeah. Tanero says the typical American thing is often in books that they mention the current, present, or politics when the books had absolutely nothing to do with it. Another thing would be acting as if there was an ultimately correct answer for everything. Yeah. So you got to pick some answer. But like, yeah, that's a good point. You have to have some sort of example here. But again, like, what is the strategy? There's a strategy, and I see something going on here. What's up, Rex? How you doing? Good Sunday to you too. Why is it only talking about water? Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Dogger says multi-cause, multi-solution is where the fun is. Then all, yeah. So again, we're trying to narrow something down, and I'm a little worried about their strategy here. That's what's going on. Okay, but let's get to this paragraph. I'm going pretty slow on this paper. But I mean, it warrants it. There's a lot of like little details going on. All right, the Cubs fan and the Cubs hater go to Wrigley for different reasons. We can identify these distinct reasons given by the fact that the Cubs are playing at Wrigley through two clauses. The Cubs fans' reason for going to Wrigley is to see the Cubs win. The Cubs haters' reason for going to Wrigley is to see the Cubs lose. Again, for all you philosophers out there, is seeing the Cubs win an end in itself? Is that the good in life? That the Cubs win. Now, some of you diehard people from Chicago might say yes, but for the rest of us, let's just change the sport to something you don't care about. Is it the end all be all that say like a team in like say a cricket team in India, nothing against cricket in India, they win? I'm not a fan of Indian cricket. That is not an end in itself. I'd say that is not like where I'm going to. That's not what I want to do with my life, is just go see that team in India win. Like, it's not a good in itself. So this is the problem. We're saying something right here that is clearly not an end in itself, but we're treating it as such. Yeah, so if anyone does not know our buddy Rex, Rexler is now a more consistent streamer. Everyone go give Rex a follow. They do long streams and fun streams, and they do art and stuff. Yeah, so it's but go check out Rex. She's funny. So it's yeah. Tenderos couldn't care less about football. That's the point. But these are ends in themselves in these examples, and there's something missing. A fundamental structure there. This is not the good. You might want to have a family and have a nice life. You say that, yeah, sure, good. More power to you. If that's the good in your life. Seeing the Cubs win one game probably is not the end all be all of your life. The soccer one, yeah, exactly. Whatever it is, you can imagine the Cubs are playing soccer in this case, even though they're a baseball team. Okay, the cogency of these two claims and the fact that they appear to name goals, the contents of the desire to see the Cubs win and the content to see the Cubs lose, respectively, offers independent reasons for doubting that motivating reasons are just facts. Although the orthodox view predicates that if two agents act on the basis of the same fact, that then they act for the same reason, thinking of motivating reasons as primary reasons gives motivating reasons their intuitive fineness of grain. Yeah, so there's an extra feature. You're both going to a place to see something happen, you're just doing it for a different motivating reason. So there's a drive there, as we said earlier, and that gives a second dimension. So it's a little bit more fine-grained because it's a multi-dimensional analysis here. This is good grounds for thinking that all possible motivating reasons are primary reasons, and if all normative reasons are possible motivating reasons, as the good basis account applies, then we should think that all normative reasons are primary reasons as well. Tanir says, in Germany, people get crazy about soccer. I said, oh, I know. I was picking something that I was as far removed as I could pick, that I could think of quickly, because I don't think I have too many Indian viewers, and cricket is a popular sport, but I figured it would be so far removed from everyone else. I could have picked soccer, but around here, people are, crazy about soccer too, and in Europe, as you're mentioning. But I was trying to pick something that no one cares about, as far as I know, in my community. And like I said, cricket's a good sport. People do like it, so yeah. And sometimes I see clips on social media of cool cricket plays, and they are cool. I can see why people like some of the cool plays in cricket. I can appreciate that. Okay. Advocates of the orthodoxy can resist this argument in at least three ways. First, they may insist that goals are facts and that the case is therefore consistent with the orthodox view. In other words, they may insist that agents who act for different goals on the basis of different facts and thereby act for different reasons. But this response fails because goals are not facts. Okay, why not? Can you just define goals to not be facts? Because I could define a goal as my mental state in terms of a fact. Be very cognitivist about this. Lumen says, when my girlfriend was growing up in Poland, they would avoid taking the train during games because violence between fans was so likely. Yeah, I almost got my ass kicked up in Boston multiple times just from being from New York when, the Sox were playing or the Patriots were playing. That shit is, it's soccer fans and hooliganism and just hooliganism in general is a thing. Cricket is also popular in Australia. Yeah, I do have some Australian viewers.
I salute you.
Thank you, Windy, for the follow. Douglas says, I'm confused by the goal of this line of reasoning. Is he trying to show that primary reasons are often normative reasons? Always in some weird definition of always primary and normative? Yeah, that's right, Dojo. They're trying to show that the primary reasons, normative reasons, are primary. They're fundamental. Because they're adding the motivational structure on top of whatever the worldly fact of the matter is. And that's why I just highlighted this. This response fails because goals are not facts. They're motivational structures, they're calling it that. And I was pointing out the fact that you could also call your motivational structure the fact that you have the motivational structure you do. But then there would just be a separate fact for every person. It's yeah, but it depends how you want to slice your pie. Okay. So the author said, but this response fails because goals are not facts. The most decisive argument for the distinction between goals and facts involves wading into the muddy waters of the semantic of two clauses. If two clauses do not denote propositions, as some theorists think, then they cannot express facts. Yeah, and so this is the complicated thing saying, okay, they are desires and not propositions in your head or whatever. But like, yeah, it's just saying, they're just not begging the question. They're just saying a lot of people don't think your motivations and desires are represented as propositional structures or facts in your head. Though the author agrees with these theorists that two clauses do not denote propositions, I haven't the space to explore the rebuttal here. So they're just saying, yeah, well, we're just not going to deal with that shit. I don't blame them. Tindera says, I was cycling by the arena when they had a soccer game in Leipzig, and they treated me like the enemy when I didn't even care about soccer. Yeah. That shit, that I almost got my ass kicked because I was with my buddy from Long Island, and we were walking home, and it was after a Patriots game, and so we are talking the wrong sport. Football, American football, and one of the guys could see we didn't give a shit, we weren't celebrating, and he said, you said fuck the Red Sox. And my buddy goes, yeah, whatever, dude, because he wasn't paying attention, and they were like, you said fuck the Red Sox, and we almost, like, they surrounded us, and I had to fucking calm that fucking situation down, because my buddy was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? I'm like, oh, dude, shut up. It's like, yeah, if you ain't with us, you're against us. Yep. Typo's going hard. Gotta wear the right colors. Yeah, dude. The Boston's no joke about their baseball, so it's religion out there. Okay, a simpler argument for the distinction between facts and goals is that goals don't need to be true to give normative reasons, but propositions need to be true, that is, to be facts to give normative reasons. For example, if I desire to drink water, some think that said desire is equivalent to the desire that I drink water, assessed in some they say or first personal mode. However, I can desire to drink water when I'm not drinking water. In that situation, assuming that the contents of desires are propositions, the contents of my desire to drink water is not true. Yeah, I mean, I don't like this either. Whatever. Nevertheless, the goal of drinking water gives me a prudential reason to go to the fountain when I'm thirsty. Consequently, goals needn't be truths to give reasons, so goals don't play the roles of facts in normative reasons. A final rebuttal rests in observing the facts and goals move us differently. All right, I just got to say something about this. The fact would be something about your psychology if you're thirsty. There would be a fact that you have something going on in your brain that like gives you thirst, and that would be the distinction there. It's not that you are actually drinking water now, it's that you have the desire in some sort of psychological sense, and that would be a fact. It would be, a brain state, if you will, and like that's okay. Like, what's wrong with the brain state? We're sciencey here, right? Right? And so it's like, yeah, so it's like you have a brain state, and that's what's causing this shit. Like, where's Ivan when I need him? I mean, actually, Ivan's up at a conference having fun. But, yeah. Anyway. Doger says, so he's arguing that primary reasons are a subset of normative reasons because if you dig into the details, that is just a resulting conclusion. The often I agree with as obvious as the always seems to be moving the goalpost. Yeah. The author here is not giving a full argument. This is okay. I'm not going to say it's good or terrible. It's okay in this case. This is not their main focus in this paper. This is a common distinction in philosophy that they're discussing here. Like, there's a common topic in philosophy of mind on this stuff and action. So they're just on one side of it. This is not the focus of their paper. They're just basically giving some hand-wavy stuff saying, I'm on this side here. I can't really criticize them. No one can argue all the things here. But, yeah, we've just moved from the always to the sometimes. But, in the sometimes world, it's always the case. So, if you, you're in that camp, it's always the case. Dojo asks, what if I'm not thirsty per se, but more fundamentally, I want a drink of water specifically? The pairing just falls away. Yeah. That's the issue. And that's part of the issue here is that it's, yeah, 60% works every time. Yeah. So you just want the water. The water in the end is in the end of itself. And that's part of what I've been arguing about. It's I don't think all this extra machinery makes sense all the time. So, but again, where are they going with this argument? What they're doing here is this is setting the stage. That's all that's happening. We're still in we're in the middle of the paper. We're setting the stage here. And I mean, I know you can't probably read this, but they've got a fucking big ass footnote, and and they're talking about the stuff up here About where's the 10? Yeah. So like yeah, like all these footnotes down here, they're all trying to explain all this, like these arguments that they're hand waving up here. Like so, you've got a half a page of footnotes to talk about this, and this is why it's okay. This is a big discussion. They're just on one side of it. That's it. Okay. Okay, so where were we? Okay. A final rebuttal rests in observing that facts and goals move us differently. For example, it is widely assumed that facts cannot move us as motivating reasons unless we believe them. But even if goals were facts, we needn't bear a cognitive relation to them when they motivate us, only a conative one. Consequently, there's an important motivational difference between facts and goals for which the orthodox view does not account. This is reason enough to look beyond the view. Yeah, so what exactly is conative? I don't even fucking remember at this point. Normative is, I think it just has to do with our mental relation to it, but I want to get this right. Conative is, in psychology, rating to conation, the nature of exerting, endeavoring. In grammar, expressing endeavor or effort. Yeah, so it's just a motivating thing, giving us like a reason to have some sort of effort there. So it doesn't need to be a fact. It could just be a psychological state, and this is what they're saying. It's just a psychological state giving us motivation to do something. That's it. So you don't have to worry about any of that complicated fact shit. You just need a state that gives you effort in a direction. And that's not exactly a fact. But again, like I said, you could probably put a factive layer on top of it that you have such a conative state, that you have such a desire in a brain state is what's going on. But like, yeah, willing. Thank you, Luminance. Okay. However, philosophers can resist this argument two other ways by denying either of two other claims on which it rests. They may deny that all normative reasons are motivating reasons, or they may deny that the Cubs fan and the Cubs hater go to Wrigley for different reasons, finding it natural to think that they go to Wrigley for the same reason precisely because they go on the basis of the same fact. Fortunately, these two responses can be rebutted by a distinct but closely related argument that does not depend on either claim. Cost says, haha, reason checked in again, found another reason not to be concerned. Hey, well, I'm happy that all of your reasoning is and motivations are working in sync, Cost. That's usually very good. Okay. Distinguishing prudential and moral reasons. Consider two agents, the pure egoist and the pure altruist. The pure egoist cares only for herself. She is motivated only by prudential reasons. The pure altruist cares only for others. She is motivated only by moral reasons. I mean, and they have a footnote there because clearly moral is weird to say here, not to take care of yourself. Like, why would that be the case? But like, weird. Okay. So there's a footnote, but fuck the footnote. As a result, these two agents are motivated in wholly different ways, and since motivating reasons characterize our motives, these two agents never act the same way for the same reason, given the schism between their motives. If we add the orthodox supposition that normative reasons are facts, the scenario implies that these two agents never perform an action on the basis of the same fact. But that's clearly false. For example, each can be moved to save a child because the child is drowning. This is possible because the altruist and the egoist goals differ. The altruist is moved, we may suppose, by her goal of respecting and preserving human life. By contrast, the egoist is moved, we may suppose, by her goal of being esteemed and rewarded for saving the child. Nevertheless, it is possible for the same fact, and only that fact, to move each to perform the same act. We must therefore reject one of the foregoing claims, as I'll argue at least the least plausible claim is the orthodox view that reasons are facts. Yeah, so, again, if you have two very different people, they may act differently because of the way they are, not the way the world is. Yep. Doga says, if I were to ask the other guard whether we should save the child, what would they say? They'd all say yes. You should save the child. What do you mean the other guard? I'm not sure. But the idea is that they both agree on what should be done. They just don't do it for the same reasons. So they think they're right, but for the other one's right, but for the wrong reasons. So it's yeah. Okay, like the case of the Cubs fan and the Cubs hater, this case suggests only that the acting on the basis of the same fact does not suffice for acting on the same reason. It does not entail that normative reasons are primary reasons. However, primary reasons offer an enticing explanation of exactly how reasons are more finely grained than facts, for it offers an explanation of how reasons resemble facts enough to be confused for them. For example, if normative reasons are primary reasons, then distinct normative reasons, like the egoist prudential reason and the altruist moral reason, can overlap on the same fact while nevertheless remaining distinct in virtue of containing different goals. Yeah, and you see what I was talking about earlier. Their end goals are completely... They're talking about end goals now, not the proximate ones. So, like, you're doing stuff for these end goals. Like, the egoist wants to do things for themselves. In the end, that's how they get the good life. And the altruist wants to help the world, and that's how they think they get the good life. And so they're doing stuff for these two different goals, even though in the short term, their goals, the goals align. And so this is giving, like I said, a second dimension on what sort of, how to distinguish what's going on with people. Okay. Indeed, a now familiar reason exists for thinking that normative reasons contain both goals and facts. Strikingly, Davidson's observation that we attribute motivating reasons in two different ways, which correspond to primary reasons to parts, also holds for the attributions of normative reasons. For example, we can claim that a moral reason to save the drowning child is to respect and preserve human life. Likewise, we can claim that a prudential reason to save the drowning child is to be esteemed and rewarded. If we take at face value these two clause reasons attributions track differences between moral and prudential reasons, just as more familiar that clause reasons attributions are thought too. Yikes. These are like too many. This is not easy sentences to read. My apologies. Because these claims involve the attribution of prudential and moral reasons, they provide strong evidence that, for example, the goal of respecting and preserving human life is part of a moral reason, while the goal of being esteemed and rewarded is not. However, despite my great sympathy for these claims, I stress that I am simply assuming that they are true in order to illustrate the dual aspect view. Indeed, I am not defending any particular view about which reasons are normative, much less about which reasons are moral or prudential in particular. I am simply defending a particular model or ontology of reasons according to which there are pairs of facts and goals, rather than just facts or fact-like entities. Yeah. So this is appealing to, like, you see, they're having to appeal to what I was saying, like a final cause. What is the final cause in the sense of a human life? Like to act good or bad. And so that is going back to some actual, like, classic metaphysics, like Aristotelian, if you will. And so this is breaking things down differently. I mean, you've got the efficient goal, you got the final goal, but then, as Heidegger mentioned, what is the final goal of humanity or your life or whatever it is? It's not maybe your destiny according to Heidegger, but basically, if you're not just looking at the proximal goal, the immediate goal, then you have something that is a metaphysical according to the person, and that is a further distinguishing thing about why they do what they do. Is this relevant? Why do you do the things you do? Is that relevant? Well, they say, yeah, that gives an extra dimension of specificity to be more particular about what's going on. Yeah, so this is why there's 4 causes in Aristotle. There's 4 different dimensions. Ontology says, destiny is the authentic community, project for individual Dasein. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. Well, that's the issue here. It's, we're getting ourselves back to just this sort of ontological distinction, and they're saying, look, the way the world is not telling us why the person did it in the end. You need that other reason why to fully understand the situation. Okay. And that's it. It's just classic metaphysics, if you will. In contrast to Section 2's argument, this argument does not rely on the premise that all normative reasons are motivating reasons, so one cannot resist the conclusion that normative reasons are primary reasons by denying that all normative reasons are motivating reasons. Nevertheless, like Section 2's argument, it rests on the assumption that the egoist and the altruist act for different reasons, despite acting on the basis of the same fact. Given the deep divide in their motives, this claim is compelling. Nevertheless, some may be tempted to insist that the altruist and egoist act for the same reason by insisting that some moral and prudential reasons for an agent to do something are identical. The author will now provide a third argument, which shows that moral and prudential reasons for an agent to act in some way must be distinct, so we should accept that normative reasons are primary reasons. Yeah, this just is all feeling like they're arguing classic metaphysics to me. It's like, we really need a final cause here. It's like, really? We really, really do. We can't just get away with the efficient cause. Or like, whatever, the formal cause, whatever it is. Yeah. What was it? Efficient, final, formal is what happens to me. Material. Haha. Okay. Weighing explanations. Defenders of the orthodoxy may read the case of the egoist and altruist differently. They may take it to show that if a single fact gives both prudential and reasons for a certain agent to save the child and a moral reason to do the same, then some facts, like that a child is drowning, are sometimes both prudential and moral reasons for the agent to save the child simultaneously. This implies that counterintuitively, the egoist and the altruist can act for the same reason precisely because they can act on the basis of the same fact. Okay, so that the kid drowning is just a very complicated fact, and everyone acts on it. Maybe they act on it differently, but it's the same fact. So basically, ought implies nothing. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. What exactly you mean there, ontologist? So, like, the ought here is, yeah, like, what exactly is the ought you're talking about here? Not sure I get it. Okay, however, as the author will now argue, different kinds of normative reasons for action, like prudential and moral reasons, must be numerically distinct if reasons are to play their most central role in moral philosophy, namely the role of weighing explanations of normative facts. In other words, I'll show that weighing explanations require primary reasons, fineness of grain. A normative claim does entail a prescriptive action. Yeah, well, they're saying that maybe not all the time. Yeah. So basically, yeah. Okay, we had a knot. Yeah, I was wondering where that knot was. Yeah. So a normative claim does not entail a prescriptive action. Yeah. So not all the times, but sometimes it doesn't. So they're trying to. It's a very thin needle they're trying to thread here. They're just trying to say that you need this metaphysics the way they are doing it. And I don't love their metaphysics here, but they're trying to just argue for final causes, basically. And, yeah. So, but not all final causes are going to be in effect at all times. So a normative claim does not entail a prescriptive action always. Sometimes it will, though. But, like, they're still just they're doing that in order to say that the normative claims are fundamental when they do motivate action. Okay. When deliberating, back now? Cool. Thanks for the lurk, if you were lurking. When deliberating about what to do, we weigh considerations. For example, that wine is tasty favors drinking another glass. Again, is this an end in itself? Is that why you drink wine, for the tastiness? But the author but I'll feel terrible in the morning if I do favors abstaining. Yeah, so okay. So if they don't drink, then they won't feel terrible in the morning. When deliberating about whether to have another glass, I'll assess how strongly each consideration bears on what to do, how weighty each consideration is, and act on the consideration I deem weightier. Weighing explanations of what you should do resemble this picture of deliberation. What one should do is explained by the balance of reasons for or against the relevant options. Reasons are more or less weighty as a function of how strongly each bears on the question of what to do. Questions about what someone should do can be answered in a similar manner. Of course, should has different senses, which are explained by different groups of reason. It is controversial whether there is an unrestricted, all things considered sense of should where all reasons are relevant. But there are clearly senses of should, like its rational, moral, or prudential senses, where only certain reasons are relevant. For example, that I promised to show up on time for dinner tonight is a moral reason to show up on time. But if on my way to dinner I see a cyclist get into an accident, then that's a moral reason not to show up on time and stay behind to help the cyclist instead. What I should do in this circumstance, morally speaking, depends on the weight of these two reasons. If the promise is especially important, say I promise to my beloved to show up on time for our wedding reception, then that's a weighty reason to show up on time. And if the cyclist's injuries are especially grave, that's a especially weighty reason to stay behind. Ontologist says, so Kierkegaard's teleological suspension of the ethical. I guess that would be an example of it. Yeah. So like you would not always be bound by it, but that would also, in the weird way this author is talking about stuff, make it a very unique claim. And so you need the ethical to be able to say you're teleologically suspending it. So you're not actually bound by it. But that's kind of the point. That's the exception proves the rule there in your case. So like, yeah, where you actually have a duty to do something, but you have, for some reason, not done it. But like that also proves that the facts remain the same, but we can only specify that in light of you having that moral obligation. So yeah, I think that's right. Okay. So suppose that in this particular circumstance, both reasons are equally weighty. In that case, you may keep the promise that you keep the promise, or you may stay behind. Either option is morally permissible. Crucially, only moral reasons figure in this balance. For example, imagine that the cyclist offers you $10 to help them. The reason given by this reward, suppose, shifts the balance of all reasons, making the otherwise perfectly counterbalanced set of reasons to help the cyclist weightier than the set of reasons to keep the promise. Valpo says, but also Soren Kierkegaard's suspension is Hegelian suspension. It is not just canceling. Okay, I do not know enough of this. Thank you for the background there, Valpo, which is what you think I said. Okay, I'm happy I got it right, but at this point I'm far out of my depth in discussing Kierkegaard and examples. Yeah, so... yeah. Valpo, however, is an expert in Kierkegaard. So yeah. Again, what the author here is doing is making a very fine distinction about the necessity of moral reasoning as normative and not just a fact. And they're putting a lot of time and effort into this. I'm not entirely sure why they're putting so much time and effort into it, but they are, because they could have just hand waved and, done like something like is being suggested in chat, appealing to Kierkegaard. They could have appealed to Aristotle and the Four Causes, a bunch of other stuff, but they're giving a lot of arguments to just be like, yes, and it's not a fact, it's a something else. And, in the Aristotelian terminology, it's just one of the four causes. It's a different cause. Not a big deal. Okay, continuing. So the cyclist offers you the money to stay and help out. So in that case, you should, all things considered, help the cyclist rather than keep the promise. Nevertheless, even if the cyclist offers a reward to break the promise, you may, morally speaking, keep it. The reward is irrelevant to what you should do, morally speaking, because it gives a merely prudential reason to help, which must be ignored when determining the balance of moral reasons. Yeah, so it's like, once you're up for being paid for something that you were morally doing, then you are doing something non-moral, affecting the moral, and yeah, then you're just negotiating differently. What is a Hegelian suspension? I don't know. Loom says, it's when Hegel comes in and takes a third out of your cord. Yeah, okay. Now we're getting into the jokes. Dear Lord, what's happened? Okay. Getting to the last third of this paper, so something should happen. Something please happen in this paper. More generally, the balance of a set of reasons explains what someone should do in any of the restricted sense of should, may, and so on, only if that set meets two criteria. It must include only reasons relevant to the restricted sense in question, otherwise it risks assigning too much weight to one of the options. Likewise, the set of reasons must also include all the relevant reasons. Otherwise, it risks assigning too little weight to one of the options. When some fact gives two reasons, one relevant to weighting explanation and one irrelevant, we must include the former and exclude the latter. Yeah. Okay, so we've got people arguing Hegel on. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm going to run away in my analytic philosophy. The trouble with claiming that a single fact is both a moral and a prudential reason now emerges. Suppose that two children, qualitatively identical in all moral respects, are drowning and only one can be saved. Consequently, you may save either, but you must save one. Moreover, one child is from a rich family, the other is not. The person who saves the first child will be richly rewarded, not so for the second. Suppose that reasons are facts, and the fact is rich child is drowning is a moral reason to save them. It's also a prudential reason to save them. This creates a dilemma. Either we include the fact when determining the balance of moral reasons, or we do not. If we do include it, we'll have to allow a prudential reason to distort the balance of moral reasons. The prudential dimension of that fact distorts the balance of moral reasons in precisely the same way that the cyclist reward does, creating a specious moral obligation to save rich child where there is none. However, if we exclude the fact, then we'll have ignored the morally relevant reason, thereby distorting the balance of moral reasons. We'll falsely suppose that the set of moral reasons includes only the fact that the second child is drowning. Since any reason trivially outweighs an absence of countervailing reasons, we'll be forced to falsely conclude that we must save the second child and may not save the first. Consequently, the assumption that the reasons are facts leads to an insoluble dilemma like these, where we must either include an irrelevant reason or exclude a relevant one in weighing explanation. I mean, it would be ad hoc to give the economic status of the kids if you assume them to be moral. And so it's like, yeah, then you would be saying that, yeah, again, this argument here assumes we know what counts as moral and what doesn't. So are you including financial status as moral? Are we? So the question here is like, what actually counts as moral? And this assumes we know, because it assumes that we can discount the monetary things in it. And so I was thinking along this way. I was like, well, fuck it. The rich family has all this money. If they lose the kid, they'll be able to console themselves in all their money. The poor family lose their kid. They won't have anything. They'll just be sad because they have nothing else. So you should save the poor kid. I mean, if you want to take the other side. So it's like, well, would that make the money a moral thing? Because the rich family would, maybe have an opportunity to have another kid. Poor family may not have the financial means to do so. It's like, I'm not sure that the author gets to decide what counts as prudential and moral so easily here. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not sure it's so clear cut here where it's going on. Okay. All right. So anyway, by contrast, if normative reasons are primary reasons, then we can distinguish the two reasons given by the single fact by associating with different goals. Perhaps a moral reason given by the fact that the child is drowning is associated with the moral goal of preserving and respecting human life. Perhaps a prudential reason is associated with the prudential goal of earning reward and praise. Again, what counts as moral? Just because you're calling them different here, author, does not make them moral in one way or another. Say we have some very weird moral theories. I mean, I agree with what they're saying. I just don't think it's good metaphysics here. So long as the moral and prudential goals do not overlap, we'll have solved the problem. Yeah, but again, they know this, but how do you actually keep these things from overlapping? As a result, we cannot resist the argument for primary reasons as normative reasons given by the case of the egoist and the altruist by asserting that because they act on the basis of the same fact, the two agents act for the same reason. The two reasons given by the fact, one moral and one prudential, must be distinct if we are to preserve reason's most central role in moral philosophy. Okay. We just have to grant them this. I mean, I'm not sure they got everywhere they want to, but my brain is too fried at this point. All lives are equally valuable, so they can both drown, says ontologist. Yeah. Suspension, JavaScript, async, wait, yes. Isn't the reward stuff all just one thought too many, just save the kid, says Valpo? Yeah, and this is part of my problem since the get-go. I don't know if you were here, but the idea that you're doing all of this reasoning is, I think, metaphysically and phenomenologically bad. And I was saying this earlier, what is actually going on? I don't think, they had an example at the beginning. I am thirsty, and water will quench my thirst, therefore I get a drink of water. I say, no, it's the bad metaphysics going on. I don't think about it. I don't logic through it. I just reach over and grab my glass. I could have done this reasoning in the past, and I have done the reasoning in the past, but that's not what's going on most of the time. Okay. So, author says, I've just argued that weighing explanations depend on distinctions, and the facts taken as reasons don't provide as facts, and I've proposed that we should instead weigh more complex objects than that resemble primary reasons. I'll briefly consider 3 responses to this final argument before concluding. The first response concedes that the problem for weighing explanations that I describe is genuine. But according to this response, it doesn't show that reasons are not facts. All it shows is that we need to make our weighing explanations more complex somehow. So this is what I was arguing. This is actually, okay, they're getting into my criticism right here. Good. This is what I meant to say. Alright, so now we're arguing. We've gone from complex arguments about other things. Feel free to argue it in chat, but this is way beyond my knowledge base. Okay. A first attempt at doing so starts with my claim facts don't provide all the distinctions that a weighing explanation requires. On its face, this claim is odd. Facts can draw arbitrarily fine-grained distinctions. After all, conjunction is recursively iterable. How then could reasons draw more distinctions than facts? Indeed, the problem for weighing explanations above appears to dissolve if we weigh only more finely grained conjunctive facts rather than the atomic facts initially used to generate the problem. Consider the difference between the following. 1. The child is drowning. 2. The child is drowning and I'll be rewarded if I save them. For example, it's natural to think that while 1 gives a moral reason to save them, 2 doesn't. It's a purely prudential reason. This latter fact favors saving the child in only a prudential way and not a moral way, so it does not undermine the weighing explanation of what you should morally do. I mean, this is again them reading a lot into this. The question is, what does the conjunction actually do here? And I'm not sure that this is the place in this essay on these sorts of things to talk about pragmatics of language and the difference between the pragmatics. What you say, if I save them, I'll be rewarded, or if I save them is just full stop, and what the conjunction is doing here. This is these all get very tons of pixels, tons of ink has been spilled on this problem. Okay. Author continues. However, observations about 2 do not show what must be shown to rebut the argument. That argument concerns 1 and its problematic dual significance, not 2. So unless it can be shown that through additional argument that the facts about 2 imply that 1 is not problematic, discussion of 2 rather than 1 is merely a distraction. Okay, this is a fair response. They're saying, yeah, you don't know what the person's thinking when they just say the child is drowning. Are they saying the child is drowning and I should morally save them, or are they saying the child is drowning and it would look really bad if we stood here and did nothing? Are they being prudential about it? Okay, let the author also restate the dialectical import of my claim that 1 gives both a prudential and moral reason. I am not trying to defend a particular view about which reasons are moral. I am simply trying to defend a model of normative reasons inspired by primary reasons. Consequently, though I think it's extremely plausible that 1 gives both a moral and prudential reason in the context I've described, even if it doesn't, it suffices that 1 makes it extremely likely that some facts give both moral and prudential reasons, and that those facts will create similar problems. That likelihood shines a flattering light on the dual aspect view. Again, they still are thinking that they can separate moral and prudential, which annoys me, but it's okay. It's really not a problem. Most moral theories make that distinction. On a different way of looking at the problem, it shows only that the reason relation, the relational property exemplification of which distinguishes reason-giving facts from more prosaic ones, is more complex than it is ordinarily thought to be. From this point of view, making the reason relation more complex makes weighing explanations correspondingly more complex. For example, we might think that the fact that the rich child is drowning stands in 2 reason relations. It stands in the moral reason relation. As a result, it gives more reason to save the child. But it also stands in the distinct prudential reason relation. As a result, it also gives a prudential reason to save the child. Moreover, this account is consistent with the orthodox view, for it is consistent with the claim that each normative reason is identical to the fact that gives it. Yeah, so there's a fact about all of this stuff. However, Positing complex reason relations solves nothing all by itself. When we make relations more finely grained, we make the conditions under which an object satisfies a corresponding relational property more finely grained. For example, when we shift from a conception of an intention that relates sentences to worlds to one that relates sentences to worlds and times, we are able to characterize how the passage of time affects a sentence truth. But we don't make sentences themselves more finely grained, only on the conditions under which they're true. Likewise, when we make the reason relation more finely grained by adding a parameter reflecting morality or prudence, we gain the ability to distinguish how, loosely speaking, morality or prudence make a fact reason giving, but we do not make reasons themselves more fine grained. Yeah, so again, they're at least now they're recognizing, well, no, they're not recognizing. They are basically saying there are other factors, and this is, again, depending on your background metaphysics, but again, they should have just been like, oh, I'm Aristotelian, we have a final cause here. And morality or prudence plays into how we want our lives to go, and this is separate from the fact in the world. I mean, again, but yeah. But, like, this is fine. I don't disagree, but I don't see this as, what am I trying to say here? Like, if everything's just a fact, then you do need something on the outside of it. And they're finally getting away from morality versus prudence. They're just saying you need something else to give you motivation. Otherwise, everything's just a fact on par with every other fact. And that's a fine argument. Like, this is okay, but it took them a long time to say it. I'm not even sure they said it well. Okay, crucially, to solve the problem, we need to make reasons themselves more finely grained, not simply the conditions under which they are reasons more finely grained. The problem shows that when offering a weighing explanation of a normative property like the one denoted by moral should, the objects weighed in that explanation cannot straddle the distinction between morality and prudence. Distinguishing the moral reason relation from the prudential reason relation doesn't all by itself make weighing explanations more complex, for the simple fact that weighing explanations weigh reasons, not reason relations. Again, they're saying, look, you need something on the outside of the fact, because all facts are just flat at this point. Alcott says, whoa, hold up. Reason's already said you don't need to concern yourself, and that reason found everything reasonable. Yeah, exactly. But you do need to appeal to reason. So if you're saying, well, the fact does everything, that's what the author's taking issue with here. But like, yeah, I think they finally realized that the arguments they were giving up here, I didn't like them, and they finally got somewhere down here. I think this is finally getting somewhere where they're finally figuring out that they need to argue straight up metaphysics, that facts alone, if there's nothing else in your universe, are non-causal. Like, that's just telling you the state of the world, and it doesn't matter how complex they get, because it's still just the state of the world. And they're finally getting to this sort of interesting claim in this area here. Yeah, it's not not a complexity problem or the conditions under which they exist are fine-grained. It doesn't matter how complex your facts are, because if they're just more facts, everything is a fact then. Okay, rather, only if we also make the weighing explanation more complex so that it is sensitive to the parameter in the reason relation that allegedly distinguishes from morality from prudence, can this strategy address the problem. There are at least 3 general worries in this approach, in addition to the idiosyncratic worries that come with different choices for the parameter in question. Doger says, just listen to a lecture on the history of mens rea, and I think that a legal system that isn't interested in your mental state is interesting. Yeah, this is part of the issue, is it's so hard to know what people were thinking at different times. And all granted, my knowledge of mens rea is from Legally Blonde. But the idea that, like, you have a vicious will, thank you, L. Woods, is critical to, like, committing a crime. You can't know what the will is, so you're only looking at the facts in a case. But then, like, the whole point is that there is a motivation. There is a motive to the murder or whatever. Like, that's what you're trying to establish. And you have to realize, at least in the U.S. justice system, you were never found innocent. You were found not guilty. You were just showing that beyond a reasonable doubt that the person did commit the crime in the way shown. And if you can't prove that, then of course they may have had the vicious will, they may have done it, but it just wasn't proven to the requirement. And so this is part of the issue is, what is this other thing that we're trying to establish? Okay. All right. First, it is entirely ad hoc, motivated by a need to solve the problem and not by independent considerations. Okay. So what are we talking about? Oh, okay. So we're worried that like your need for this motivating factor is ad hoc. Second, because weighing explanations are more complicated than ordinarily thought. On this view, they are less natural and so less appealing. Yeah, so you have a second thing to worry about, more complexity. Fine. We cannot simply say that morality requires the act favored by the balance of moral reasons. We must say that the morality requires the act favored by the balance of moral reasons relative to P, where P is the parameter that distinguishes morality from prudence, or morality from anything that isn't morality. I'm getting so annoyed with their like prudence. It's just morality from other things, and this morality is just the end cause or whatever. Dojo has been trying to explore their own psyche and what really motivates them. I can't even explain my motivations in my own mind. Yeah, I am being the philosopher I am. I have very, very good ideas. My thought is extremely like regimented. I know why I do what I do. Yeah. I mean, most people, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need to be doing things in the way I do them. I just happen to be an oddball that does stuff like this. Like, why do I do all this stuff? I have a pretty good idea. Okay, the naturalness of weighing explanations, like the first largely accounts for normative reasons, centrality in contemporary moral philosophy. The second, more cumbersome analysis undercuts that appeal, so it offers only a pyrrhic solution to the problem. Finally, opting for this solution jettisons our easy account of two-clause reason attributions, which strongly suggest locating goals in the reasons themselves rather than the reason relation, which, as a side benefit, appears to distinguish morality and prudence, thereby solving the problem described above in an independently motivated fashion. Yeah, so I mean, this is on what Dojo's saying, is that if you have to start worrying about motivations, like, that's a lot more complicated. The final response the author wishes to raise on behalf of the orthodoxy is the doubt that goals distinguish morality from prudence despite appearances. If some goals are both prudential and moral, then the dual aspect does not in fact help to distinguish reasons that must be kept distinct. This worry is genuine. Indeed, depending on how we understand what it is for a goal to be moral or prudential, overlap in goals seems possible. For example, suppose that a goal is moral just when its pursuit tends to make an act morally right. Likewise, suppose a goal is prudential just when its pursuit tends to make an act prudent. If a view like classic utilitarianism is true, then this account of what makes goals moral or prudential implies that some goals, like that of experiencing happiness, are both moral and prudential. On these assumptions, that goal is both moral and prudential because, other things being equal, pursue one's happiness tends to make an act both prudential and moral. And finally, we're getting somewhere. And like, this is one of the things that was annoying me. It was like, this should have been obvious to like philosophers that you have different systems where you're not going to be able to split these things apart all the times. And so the fact that they were arguing along these lines really confused me, because it seemed so obvious that you'd have sometimes when these things are overlapping. And so it should have just been moral and non-moral, not moral versus prudential. Because everyone has any theory of morality is going to say some things are moral and some things are, just the way the world, like the received world, and like it's just the scenery, and that's not moral, that's just scenery. So it's like, the old line from, God damn it, Ronan, like either you're part of the solution, you're part of the problem, or you're part of the scenery. And so if you're part of the scenery, then you're not really part of the motivating thing there. And that's what's important in this. But like, but that depends on your theory. Like, what counts as scenery and what counts as not part of the scenery really makes a big difference in philosophy. I didn't mean to hurt you or sleep with all your friends. Yeah. I mean, and that's part of the issue, Dojo. It's, some people can't be believed when they say stuff like that, or they should have known better. It's like, what's it called? Ad hominems at that point seem like the right thing to do. It's like, no, fuck you, Anthrax. Like, you fucking suck. You could have thought of this. You should have known better. It's like, you didn't mean to hurt me. It's like, what were you intending then? Are you that dense? And it's like, no, you are that dense and you actually do this. And it's like, you don't count in like a moral space at that point. Like, you kick them out of like, I can't even deal with you. What is received reality other than materialism? Well, that's a very interesting question, Sock. Now, there's lots of theories out there of what reality is. So it's like, yeah. But again, what's a question here is what counts as moral. Lots of different ways of understanding moral, too. Adams says, after 1931, Wittgenstein would say these higher-order language games of morality aren't reducible to simple atomic facts, but does say minds compare these sets of reasons. Yet pushback on this is that the content does matter when life is real, and you have the option when looking back at which application use. Should you keep alive or rescue, call 911, etc., do no act, rule, act, utilitarianism, maybe. Yeah, so Wittgenstein's hard on the morals. He didn't say enough in any one spot to have a very like a easy way of doing it. People have put together what he's said to put together a Wittgensteinian ethics or like meta ethics or whatever it might be, based on a bunch of other writings, and like you can get something out of that. You do seem to get like that you're playing a language game of morals in his later philosophy, and that would count as some sort of like moral analysis. So you will get this sort of like weighing of reasons, but you're also going to get some sort of when you are finding something morally wrong, you're just going to find it like it doesn't match up with your sense of what the reality should be like. And so, yeah, you can weigh reasons, of course, but that's not the fundamental thing. The fundamental thing for Wittgenstein, as far as I know, his morality, his moral theories, is that, like, you have a background sense of what counts as moral, and then when something is outside that, it's like it's outside of your sense of what's moral. It's like something's wrong with that. And that's not a weighing of morals. That's a fundamental moral judgment about some sort of state of the world. So, yeah. Okay, where were we here? And Stockton finds moral reality is funny to you? Yeah, well, not everyone agrees. Like, this is like a lot of people nowadays, this is how, like, this sort of like we have a scientific view of the world, and it's like, okay, and then our morality's on top of that. Not everyone agrees, so it's like, yeah. Doger says, that's why I think it's an error to explore the results of computer science style tokenizer. The abstraction is important, contains the meat. Yeah, but I mean, again, I wouldn't just assume that computer science is doing good metaphysics. It may have a lot of overlap with logic, but it's not telling you how you should organize our reality in general. It's how some people thought it would be good to design computer programs. Okay. As a result, the author says, proponents of the dual aspect account can't simply deny that a goal is moral just when and because its pursuit tends to make an act right. Rather, they must reject any account that similarly predicts overlap in prudential and moral goals. However, there is an independent reason for doing so. For example, Christine Swanton argues roughly that one acts virtuously just when and because one act aims at and realizes a virtuous end. Okay, see, now we've gone straight fucking Aristotelian, which I've been bitching about this entire paper. The entire paper, I've been saying, you're going to have to, like, this, the Aristotelian metaphysics has been lurking, and now they're finally doing this. Like, I wonder if one of the reviewers was like, dude, like, you've been saying all this bullshit, and then, like, now you have to, like, what about this other view? Alright, according to her, moral goals aren't simply the ones whose pursuit tends toward morally right actions. They're the ones that constitute virtuous motives whose successful pursuit suffices for virtue. And this is what I was complaining about habit in the get-go. This problem had a problem with virtue and habit. I said that was a better theory, and now they're finally getting there, because, like, the end is right fucking here. Like, this is the end of the paper. And I wonder if one of the reviewers was like, there's this other way that avoids all your problems. Say this. And they did it. Okay. Swan's account implies that prudential and moral goals do not overlap. Were overlap possible, a purely selfish agent could act just as virtuously as a morally well-intentioned one were the first to successfully pursue such a goal. But that's impossible. Only the well-intentioned agent acts virtuously. So Swan's account implies that no virtuous ends are prudential ones. Consequently, the worry that prudential and moral goals overlap rests on an assumption that are contestable on independent grounds. Yeah, oh my god, but that's a fucking giant jump from every other ethics to like a virtue theory right at the end. Like, okay, to be clear, this manner of addressing the third worry does not compromise the dual aspect account's neutrality on the substantive first-order question of which reasons are moral or of which goals are part of moral reasons. Rather, it only requires committing to a structural claim about whether prudential and moral goals can overlap. Arguments from Swan and others grounds for thinking that they do not. But denying that prudential and moral goals overlap does not require affirming that certain goals are or reasons are moral or prudential. However, I recognize that many more needs to be said to fully dispel this concern. Conclusion. Moral philosophers have largely ignored primary reasons on two grounds. The first is the assumption that normative reasons and motivating reasons are the same kind of things, and the dogma that normative reasons are facts. The second is an anti-psychologism about reasons. I've argued that the dogma appears inconsistent with weighing explanations and have shown how the most important features of primary reasons as normative reasons, their fineness of grain, and their explanations of the different ways that we attribute reasons do not depend on psychologism about reasons. My hope is that these arguments motivate renewed interest in Davidson's primary reasons. Okay, got to the end of this. It was a little long, but it's all right. So, not yet, no timer. But yes, we've got to the end, and now what we do is we review the paper. You tell me how you felt about it. If you thought it was fun and made your brain dance, give you some fun ideas, give it a brain dance. Spelling and capitalization do count here. Also commas. Don't put a comma after the emote. Nog Scream, if it was talking about existential or artistic drama. Thank you to Darius for the vote nay. Nog Oro for the Ouroboros for deeper ancient ideas. Nog Knife, slicing and dicing arguments. Nog Navel for navel gazing only for other academics. Nog Turd, all style no substance, still poop underneath. And Nog Rapes for big claims that shrivel up. You can also use the global vote yay and vote nay of Twitch for general thumbs up, thumbs down sort of rating, and my vote meh, which means it's just kind of middling. Note, though, also that I make an overall score. Anything in the green makes the overall score go up. Anything in the red makes it go down. And the vote man makes it go to the middle. Dojo gave it a turd also. Yeah, I'm feeling very turd-like in this one. I was complaining about stuff the whole time. And then at the end, they sort of like brought it together. And I was like, well, why didn't you just say this shit from the get-go? Their entire argument was like, oh, we have to have like moral reasons on top of the facts to give us to be motivating, because facts alone are not motivating. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. It's like, yeah, I'm feeling very turd-like. I am. This is gonna get nog turds from me. It just is. I was gonna get 2 nog turds. Like, I don't think it it made its claims. It did the argument. I just don't like how it did it. Like, it did it. It's gonna get a nog knife too. I agree with Adam. It gave some arguments, but like, holy fuck. Like, I feel like I called this from the get-go about habits. I said it way up at the fucking beginning. Like, where was that? I know you can't see here. Yeah, the fucking first page. I was complaining about this shit. You get to it right at the end, and it's like, well, okay, if you're just gonna be giving me an argument for the fucking 4 causes, you didn't need to waste all of this time to do it. So it's gonna get a nog navel too, because it's just like, oh my god, what the fuck. But yeah, so there we go. It was well done for what it did. I just don't like what it did. Like, oh. And this is one of the things. It's like, this is one of the major journals of philosophy. They seem to think this is like what should be published in the year of our Lord 2021 from just a few years ago. It's like, damn. It's like, come on. Don't you know your history of metaphysics? Like, someone, please. Doger says, my issue with this is that if they are right, then that seems potentially useful to their own potential arguments, but if they are wrong, I think you just use your arguments to accommodate them being wrong. Yeah, so part of the issue here is that they're trying to really hammer home that there's something else going on in moral talk. And like that's fair. Like it's okay. But the arguments that they ended up giving are, how to say this? I feel like they were rehashing a lot of old arguments just in claims of the independence of different causes, the independence of morality versus facts. So like, something being truth apt, not truth apt, something being like moral, not being like accountable to just like the standards, like scientific standards. Like I feel like these are all very like long discussions we've had. So it's a little hand wavy. So it's like, I don't know if it wasn't so hand wavy, but I just felt like it wasn't bringing a whole lot new to the discussion. I feel like these discussions have happened in the past, continue to happen, and has this paper really added a lot to it? I didn't think so. I mean, I felt like I was harping on the same shit the whole time. They got there in the end, but it was like, well, so fucking what? Like, it was kind of obvious what the discussion was, and nothing really happened for the rest of this. Okay, 60 seconds. If anyone else wants to get your reviews in, now's the time to do it. It's it wasn't a badly written paper as far as analytic philosophy goes, but I just don't think it went very far, even for analytic philosophy. It feels like it missed out on the history of a lot of these arguments. It's kind of killing me here. I needed to drink more water. A little dried out, I can feel it. Yeah, we're coming up on 3 hours too, so. Alright, I guess no one else has anything else to say. Let's go find someone to drop you guys off at. Joker says, let's see, Lumen says, I feel like I didn't get anything out of this, but I don't know if it's because it's a turd or I don't know enough about the topic. No, that's how I feel too, Luminance. I feel like I called what I thought at the beginning. It didn't do anything for that argument either by the end, and yeah. Dojo says, I don't think I'm the intended audience, interestingly. Yeah, that's fair, Dojo. But then again, I feel like I know everything that was happening, and I feel like I understand most of what's happening in this paper. And if this is how the contemporary arguments are going, I just feel sad. Like, they should understand the history of the philosophy a little bit better. I mean, this is a major journal of philosophy, and it's not bad philosophy. I'm just like, but like, if this is what people have to be reminded about now, it's like, come on.